So greetings, good morning, TAC members and our guests. Welcome. I'm Melanie Callahan. I am chair of the TAC committee, and it is great to have each of you here this morning. Just a couple of quick points and housekeeping items before we dive into our full agenda today. First thing, if possible, please make sure that you do keep all TAC members, keep your cameras enabled throughout our meeting. Please keep them turned on until our adjournment due to recording this entire session, and thank you in advance for that. Next, a change from previous years that we've had the last couple of meetings, the chat feature has been disabled on this platform. So moving forward, we will no longer have that as a form of communication within the chat. But if you need a link to any of the slides or any of the content, just send an email during or after today's TAC meeting to Justin Edwards, and he will take care of that quickly, I'm sure. And speaking of Justin Edwards, we want to welcome him as our awesome new liaison and consultant from KDE. It's great to have him on board with us now in 2025. Justin, if you wouldn't mind, would you take a moment just to introduce yourself? We'd love to hear about you and your new role and anything else you'd like to share with us.
Sure. Thank you, Melanie. As Melanie said, my name is Justin Edwards. I am the consultant that now oversees the TAC group, as well as I also oversee the Go Teach KY Ambassador Program and help a lot out in the Division of Educator Recruitment and Development. I was originally a math teacher. I taught high school math in Kentucky, and before that I taught middle school math in Florida, and before that I taught elementary school in North Carolina.
Wow.
So traveled a little all over, and originally from West Kentucky. I think Chad is from Paducah. I graduated from Lone Oak High School. So anyhow, it's great to meet all you all, and I can't wait to help be a part of this group.
Well, thank you so much, and we're so grateful to have you. Obviously, Stacy left big shoes to fill, but we know you're going to do a great job. So thank you so very much. All right, well, now let's get on to our TAC webpage link. This is our one-stop shop for anything that you need that is TAC related. So you can always click there to access any TAC information that you need moving forward. And we'll get on to our agenda items. So next slide. And we will have our welcome. So our first speaker this morning, we have our commissioner, Dr. Robbie Fletcher, here to update and address the TAC with our opening remarks. Dr. Fletcher, allow us to express our gratitude to you for your time this morning. We are always so grateful to have you. Obviously, we wouldn't have a council if we didn't have our great commissioner. So thank you so very much, and welcome.
More than kind. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. And again, I do we started out a little bit talking about the beautiful weather. And as a former superintendent, principal, and teacher, I used to tell all the time it wasn't when we have beautiful weather like this, I wasn't worried about the students. I was worried about the teachers and administration, how they would act with this weather like this. But again, it's great to be able to talk to you and have people actually in classrooms now with all the weather and all the issues we've had. So thankful to have everyone back in school after we've had a lot of missed days. I think we had somewhere around 80 or 90 districts used all 10 of their NTI days this year, which was it's almost unheard of for districts, for that many districts to use that many. But again, this is my 9th month in, so this is my first legislative session. I will say that, and I am so thankful it is a short session. There is some humor intended there because I think there's somewhere around 1,000 bills have been filed in this short session, with around 200 are educator related, or the ones that we're tracking. So there are some that I'm very excited about, and I think Ms. Trueblood and also maybe Dr. Perry may be giving us a update a little bit later. But just a couple I'll mention that we've been working on is as far as House Bill 441, and it's looking at enabling retired teachers for districts to be able to hire retired teachers a little more easily, to change that from 3% to 10%, because a lot we still have our teacher shortage. I was able to present in the fall, I think we had in September, we had 1,766 certified openings still in the state as of September. So in order to help that and make sure teachers not having to give up their planning times, or to minimize that as much as possible anyway, by putting more retired teachers and want to work back into the classroom, I think is very important. So House Bill 441 is a big one there to look at. Senate Bill 253 is probably stalled out for this, but I think it's opened up some great conversations, possibly for the next session. Essentially, 253 eliminates the teacher scholarship repayment. It also sets up a better pipeline for districts to have the teacher educator pathways and open up more dual credit, and then move into a 4-year college soon thereafter with the possibility of it would essentially be a tuition-free pathway for anyone that wants to go through a teacher pathway at their high school and then into college as they move forward. So very excited about 253. Even though it may stall out this time, I feel like it has a lot of traction to get us started in the 2026 session. But also too, of course, one of the bigger bills that I've spent a lot of time personally on deals with the 1,062 hours versus the 170, allowing districts to move to the 1,062 versus 170. And if a district adds time onto their calendar, whether they've already done that from the beginning or moving forward, they're allowed to, and if they can't get the 1,062 hours by June 4th, then they could apply for calamity days to the commissioner. Of course, right now they've attached Senate Bill 268 to that. So that's the holdup right now on House Bill 241 is that they tacked on 268. So altogether, we were tracking around 200 bills. As a matter of fact, I have a packet with some very small writing over here that has every single bill that we're tracking and some information on each one. But I tell you, there is the LRC website has some great information on where a bill is, where is it currently, how far it's moved throughout the entire process. So again, I won't talk about any more of those bills. I'll leave that up to my colleagues a little bit later. But I'll also go on and we'll talk about our town halls. We did 9 town halls, had over 600 people to attend the town halls to give input on the new model framework. We've gone through 4 prototypes. We talked about this before, 4 prototypes. And also we're starting our 3rd model framework. It's been more of a narrowing process, if you will. So now we're in the point of tweaks. We do have a draft here that we're looking to talk to our cool council about leadership today. Then in the very near future, a model framework 3.0 will come out. And the reason for 3.0 is we took the input from all the town halls. Also, too, I think some of our members here, some of their districts, I think Shelby County and Christian County, they were a part of our town halls and presented what was going on with local accountability in their districts. And again, I've presented the first 10 minutes. We also had Dr. Jennifer Stafford that presented about the accountability system, but the true stars were the ones that were the districts that were there. I think Woodford County, Shelby County, Christian County, Greenup County. We were actually in Kenton County for one of the presentations. We just had a lot of districts that were given their local accountability model, and I'm very impressed with the work that's going on throughout the state. So again, but I am happy to have those over. We did do an overnight trip. I mean, actually a drive to Eddyville, and then a drive back the same night. And presented. So that made for a little bit of a long night, but to have a 8:30 in the morning meeting the next morning after driving to Eddyville and back, it was a great meeting and worth it. Boy, it makes for a long day, but again, it was worth the trip. Christian County presented there and had a really good, just some great information that's going on across our state. So really looking forward to 3.0 and hopefully having that accountability model ready for for advocacy, hopefully in the summer, and then moving into 2026 with a framework that'll be presented to our legislators. So other than that, again, very thankful. This is a short session, the first one for the commissioner. If this is a short session, I'll be thrilled to see what a long session looks like. But again, it's been good. I will say we've had a lot of input on a lot of bills. But please also, when you read a bill, I want to emphasize this. If you read a bill that says the commissioner shall or the commissioner may, that doesn't mean they asked the commissioner. So a lot of times we often think that the commissioner had input on a bill. While we have a lot of input, I'm very thankful for the input that we've had so far. And I've been told this is some of the, since probably the most input we've had since maybe the early 2000s. It's great to have that input. But sometimes there's bills that are put out there that may have the commissioner mentioned in it that the commissioner the first time that he saw it was when it was posted. So again, please keep that in mind. So as we move forward, again, very thankful for the relationships we are building with legislators. What we try to do is let's find common ground. For example, there will be a lot of things that a legislator and I may disagree on, but maybe this particular issue we have common ground on. So let's work together to build a good law on that. Then on the other process is saying, okay, where do we compromise? Where do we stand firm? And what do we do to move forward to make sure that we're protecting our kids at the end of the day, but also too, all of our educators across the state, and trying to make the best experience we can for everyone in our public school system. So again, thankful for this time. Any type of question I may answer, anything of that matter, anything I may help with the group before we move on.
Are there any questions at this time for Dr. Fletcher?
Dr. Fletcher, this is Chad Davidson out in McCracken County, Western Kentucky. Obviously, my people are concerned about Title I funding, Title II. You name the title and the number, and there's probably going to be some funding issues that may come down from the federal government items. So what are you hearing about federal funding that would affect our public schools, and how can we help or communicate to our legislators?
Right now, we do pull downs every Monday, and all the federal funding that we're entitled to through all the title grants have come to us. The only funding that's been withheld at this point is the ESSER, the extended ESSER funds. And that was a matter of process. And actually, I haven't got a report this morning. We were supposed to do a pull down yesterday evening on that federal funds. And it was a matter of they wanted a specific process to be used. And it was my understanding that we just submitted the process and then we were supposed to get that funding. We're still paying out districts that have allocated that ESSER funding. So we're very confident that we should get that as we move forward. That being said, we haven't had anything withheld at this point other than that extended ESSER funds. And we're hoping, and I'll text our people in OFO in a little bit and see if we got that earlier. The other thing that we're hearing is, title funds are all formulaic based on students and set forth in statute. So it would take some type of act of Congress to remove those. The same thing for the U.S. Department of Education. Now, of course, the secretary could remove a lot of powers. They could do a lot of things to kind of minimize the authority of the U.S. Department of Education. But the way I read it and the way we understand it here, it essentially take an act of Congress to actually remove the U.S. Department of Education. But even if they did, the funding that is based on per student that's has a formula attached to it, especially the title funds, we feel that those still should come to districts. It may go through a different conduit than what's here now, but we're under the impression that we'll still get the funding. How we get that funding may look different. So we feel good about that, but we're just an executive order away of trying to see what's going on next. So again, we feel good about the funding that we have and what we should get with title funding.
Can I ask a follow-up question with that?
Absolutely.
With our funding, obviously, our district, we're in professional negotiations now. We just started last night, and the district may come back and say, well, we don't know if we're going to get these funds anymore or not, so therefore we can't give raises this year. Do you see in any way, shape, form, or fashion that the federal government would stop any funds from coming in just out of curiosity about that?
Probably the only thing I could see would be possibly some grants that are not formulaic and not based on students. For example, if it's not based on student numbers, then that's a possibility. And it's really hard to say yes on this one, no on this one, but as far as the title funds, we feel very comfortable with it. Now, unless there's some act of Congress, we feel good about that. But if there's a grant of some sort that is not based on the number of students, it's not formulaic, it's not set forth in statute, that's always on the table. But now we haven't had, other than the ESSER funds That's the only thing that we've had withheld to this point. So it's hard to say absolutely no, because it could be a grant away from maybe McCracken has this grant from the federal government that I'm not aware of, and that could be removed for some shape, form, or fashion. One of the, like, for example, we still have concerns about our $55 million early literacy grant. But right now, we're still on track to get that, but we feel like that we're still going to get those funds. So again, the only funds that I'd be worried about is if there is a federal grant out there that would could be cut. And again, I'm not privy to any particular one, but that'd be the only thing I'd be worried about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone
Commissioner
else have a
Fletcher?
question? Yes.
I put a question in the chat, but is EPSB, do you know if they're planning to take a more active role in determining alternate criteria for teacher licensure in response to HB 324, rather than leaving that up to local decisions? I know that I don't know. I have the personal opinion that there are a lot of equity issues with standardized testing and with praxis, and if each individual district is allowed to determine that, how that works with transferring between districts and keeping licensure. So is that something that you are aware that EPSB is trying to like actively take up, or is that something that is to be seen?
We would prefer that not to be left up to individual districts. We would prefer that to be within EPSB. That's been our lobby, has been to make sure that we stay with EPSB to have that, because in our opinion, you need uniformity. And then also too, I understand there's some people need some flexibility, but our lobbyist has been, our lobbying has been, let's keep that at the EPSB level, as opposed to putting that out to individual districts. So all the conversations we have has been centered around that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that advocacy.
You're welcome.
All right. I think there are some folks with their hands up. Just go ahead and share out as you're able.
Hey, my name is Emmanuel Anama Green down in Harlan County. And first off, in regard to what Mr. Daly was saying, I agree with y'all too. EPSB and uniformity, that's definitely important. My question though was related to House Bill 241. I know that's somewhat of an issue right now with Senate Bill 268 and so forth. We actually, as the school district, modified our school schedule and extended the school day by 34 minutes. And we've been doing that for like a week or so now. I know that obviously we can't predict the future and so forth, but is it possible, do you think we'll be able to continue on with the ideas behind that bill, or is that something that's going to be an issue and we'll be going to the middle of June, or what are your potential thoughts without having to predict the future, of course?
Well, there's without having my crystal ball handy, and the good Lord hasn't given me any other insight. But it is what I feel like is, I think that at some point it'll go into conference and they'll come out with something, whether that's related to 241. That's my opinion. 241 essentially allows those districts, just like you said, to add time. And some districts has been adding time from day one. So they're able to use that time. For example, I talked to one district, if that doesn't pass, then essentially they'll be going to June 10th. So you're looking at mid-June, and as a former teacher, it's tough to stay focused as a teacher, as a superintendent, as a principal. But I can't imagine doing testing on June 10th. That would just be horrible for everyone. It'd be horrible for students. And then too, it's just hard to stay focused. I think if you can get that finished by that first week of June, I think that's a sweet spot. But I do believe that it will go into committee or into conference, and something will come out. Now I can't guarantee that. With 268, essentially, and this was said in the Senate Education Committee meeting, 268, they felt like they couldn't get the votes for 268, so they tacked it onto 241. I say they, I'm talking about the Senate, and then they felt like they could work that out. And that was actually something that was discussed in the Senate Education Committee. I'm advocating that they're two separate issues. They should be discussed separately. When you have two issues that are not related, it doesn't make sense to put them in one bill. So let's talk about 241 and the merits. As a matter of fact, I talked with Senator Titchener about there's two different sets of days in that bill. There is a set of 5 calamity days that a district could waive, they could request from the commissioners to waive, if they didn't get there, if they extended their day and they couldn't get to the 1,062 by June 4th. But there was also 5 additional disaster relief, very similar to NTI days. I believe that that was going to be changed. Those 5 were going to be changed and pulled out. And really right now, NTI is not retroactive, so you can't go back and give an NTI day. But really, that would remove some insurance as we move forward by removing those 5 days. But to me, that 1,062 and the 5 calamity is probably more important than the 5 NTI days, but I would love to see the 5 NTI days in there. So to wrap all that together, I hope that it goes into conference and we come out with something there, and we're able to separate those 2 issues as we move forward. That's my hopes. And if you want me to give a percentage, I'll say 75-25. How about that?
That's pretty good percentages without your crystal ball.
Yep, certainly is.
Anything else for Commissioner Fletcher at this time?
Good morning. My name is Carla Criswell. I'm from JCPS. And my concern is the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know some of the bills are targeting that. Of course, JCPS has a whole department that focuses on diversity, equity, and poverty. And so I was wondering what approach is Kentucky taking on that with the federal pushback, with moving some of that language from, curriculum and instruction. What does Kentucky stand on that, addressing, making sure that all our students feel that inclusion and belonging in our classrooms?
Well, we still have Thomas Tucker. Dr. Tucker is still leading the work. That there's still districts that are receiving funding on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we are still a resource for those districts. Now we're going through an audit of everything from our DEI initiatives that we've had and what we're doing to move forward. But our approach has been with every single child. Every single child deserves opportunity and access. So how do we make sure that every single child gets opportunity and access? The hard part about DEI is it's been almost weaponized. The 3 letters have been. So how do you take away, in my opinion, the letters of DEI, but we make sure that every single child has opportunity and access, every child. And poverty doesn't have a color. Poverty doesn't have actually doesn't necessarily have a geographic region, although you can get a zip code and you can see where a lot of kids, whether it be in the mountains or inner city Louisville, of poverty. So our approach has been, whenever we're talking about these type of initiatives, how does it help every single child, especially those kids that are that may be at a greater disadvantage than others? How do we make sure they have the same opportunity? How do we make sure they have the same access? So our approach has been more along those lines. Like if we see a group of students in need, first of all, we make sure we try to give every student opportunity and access, but there may be groups of students that we have to work more with in order to get them where they need to be. So we've tried to focus more on opportunity and access as opposed to getting into those national discussions and also on the state level.
Commissioner, may I add, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I would also add, we have a fierce advocate in providing access and opportunities for all students in our commissioner. I would also say that with the Kentucky Board of Education, prior to my arrival here, the Kentucky Board of Education still maintains its commitment to our state schools, our public schools, being a place that is open to all students, that we are an anti-racist organization, that we continue to focus on equity. So that has not gone away, but also there are things behind the scenes that you all may not know. We certainly work, as the commissioner mentioned earlier, we engage in these conversations with our lawmakers in terms of ensuring that each student here in the Commonwealth and our staff, many times, Carla, we forget about the importance of taking care of our staff, that each staff member, that each student has an opportunity to be successful here. So we have continued to engage in these conversations. But I'll say this on a personal note, very much akin to our commissioner, we're not going to get into fights over letters. The most important thing I say to you, as a former classroom teacher, the best job I've ever had so far in my 36-year career, with being a classroom teacher, that we're going to make sure our teachers and our students have the things that they need to be successful. And we're not going to get tied up in fighting over letters. The important thing is doing the work and getting the work done.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Other questions?
Welcome, Dr. Tucker. Thank you.
Welcome.
And let me tell you, you won't find a more fierce advocate than Dr. Tucker for our kids. He attends, as a matter of fact, we were talking about the blessings in a backpack and the work. I think he's on the board there and the work that he does. And I think he was working at a blessings for backpack in this past weekend. So again, there's always looking out for those kids in need. So I really appreciate the work that Dr. Tucker does.
And thank you for Commissioner for being that example for us.
Anything else at this time for Commissioner Fletcher, or welcome Commissioner Tucker? Anything, or Associate Commissioner Tucker? Anything else for either of these guys? All right. Well, we certainly thank you, Dr. Fletcher, for being here. We appreciate it very much. And any closing remarks?
No, what I'll say is, first of all, thank you for what you do. The most rewarding job I've had in education was as a classroom teacher. You know, nothing can replace the relationship that a teacher has with the student. And every single one of us, I believe that we can go back and point to at least one teacher that was so instrumental in getting us to where we are today in the classroom, whether it be as commissioner, whether it be as superintendent, whether it be as an administrator. You know, to me, there's no more important job. You could do without a commissioner, but you can't do without a valued teacher. You just can't, because you change lives each and every day, and it means so much to see what you do each and every day for your students from a personal standpoint, not only as a commissioner, but also as a father. I've seen the impact that teachers have made on my own kids' lives. I've seen the impact that I felt the impact as a student, but you know, one of the most rewarding experiences I've had is I was able to go to the Educators Rising conference in Louisville. 826-ish future educators, and to see the hope and the joy in their eyes, not only from winning awards in the competition, but also too the difference that they want to make. And they get that hope and joy from teachers that are inside the classroom now. So thank you for that. Thank you for what you do. Keep up the great work, and I promise you I'll be here on your behalf each and every day as long as I'm commissioner and even beyond.
Well, we certainly thank you, and you have a great day and enjoy that weather. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, so now let us get going with our roll call of our members. If you wouldn't mind to make sure that you unmute your mic. And once you do that, just when I call your name, please respond as here or present. Thank you so much. Justin, next slide. All right, Chad Davidson, McCracken County.
Yep, I'm here.
Carla Criswell, Jefferson County.
Present.
Becky Spies, Kentucky School for the Blind.
Present.
Miss Tony Prater, Kentucky School for the Deaf. All right, we'll move on. Rosa Cubera Hurley, Fayette County.
Here.
Welcome. Carla Lawson, Whitley County. No Miss Carla today. Mandy Perez, Crittenden County.
Present.
Kevin Daly, Boone County.
I'm here.
Kristen Morgan, Danville Independent.
Present.
Corey Burns, Mercer County.
Here.
Sarah Lizer, Fayette County. Casey Page, Shelby County. Brooke Leffingwell, Campbell County.
Here.
Welcome. Megan Hall, Letcher County. Joseph Stivers, Jefferson County.
Good morning, present.
Emmanuel Anama Green, Harlan County.
Yep, I'm present as well today.
Welcome. Wendy Young, Fayette County. Nick Schaffner, Middlesboro Independent. Jessica Hobson, Christian County. Shane Baker, Warren County.
Here.
Welcome. And Scott Bratcher, Breckenridge County. All right. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for verifying that you are present. We'll now move to item number 3, which is to look over and approve our agenda. So if we can have the agenda pulled up, you all have a look at that, and then I will need a motion to approve it.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda, and if we need flexibility to do that as well.
Thank you. Chad Davidson has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I second. This is Kristen Morgan.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. All right, next slide. Let's go ahead and approve our minutes from our last meeting. And if you would like to click there to access the December summary, you're welcome to, or if you have previewed that, we'll go ahead and take a motion.
Chad Davidson again, make a motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Carla
Emmanuel.
Criswell, I second.
Thank you, Carla. Caught you first, I think. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. So we will move on now to our 5th agenda item. Today, and it is Every Story Matters, and we are very happy to welcome our Kentucky Teacher of the Year, if she's up and going, and that is Jennifer Montgomery. So, Miss Jennifer, whenever you're ready, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you all today. I just want to do a quick introduction. I am a National Board Certified teacher, and I've been teaching in small rural schools for the last 23 years. I graduated from Trimble County High School and then attended Asbury University, University of Kentucky, and Campbellsville University. And I think if you had told me as a high school student that I would one day be named the Kentucky Teacher of the Year, I probably would have laughed because I didn't always see myself as a person with potential. And if you'll go to my next slide. I grew up in a really rural part of Trimble County in a 3-room home. These are pictures of my home. I know it's a little hard to see because they're aging pictures, but what I can view now, like what I know as my struggles as a child and I can see now helped shape me into the teacher I am today and the person I am today. But at the time, they were pretty big struggles in my life. For example, we had no running water and no telephone service, but we also didn't have our own well. So we would drive 20 miles to retrieve water from the nearest well. And we bathed in a metal horse trough. And I shared the only bedroom that we had with my 2 younger brothers until I was in the 6th grade. And so these moments and lots of other moments I once viewed as obstacles, they also taught me some really important lessons. If you'll go to my next slide, they taught me lessons like resources like water are really precious. They taught me to cultivate a mindset of gratitude. And if you go to the next slide, the most important lesson that they taught me was that where you come from never limits who you can become. And so I didn't understand and recognize all these lessons like on my own. I wasn't just the most astute person and I just came to all this knowledge. Of course, it was teachers that helped me understand all these things. So every single year in my public education from kindergarten through college, I had at least one teacher every single year who refused to let me dream small, who wouldn't accept anything less than my very best, and who saw potential in me when I didn't always see it in myself. And I think that's the power of education. If you'll go to my next slide, teaching is about connection. And as educators, we know that it's important, of course, to equip our students with skills that, we need to be experts in our field and we need to teach students. But it's not simply, but in order to do that, we first have to build relationships with them. And all teachers, I think, recognize that the greatest impact that we have as educators is our ability to see our students and believe in them and also help them believe in themselves. And I've seen this not only in my own classroom, but also in classrooms around the world. If you'll go to my next slide, I have had the privilege to meet people like Wilma Grandes, who you see on the left. Wilma lives just outside of Lima, Peru, in a place called Comas. And when I first visited Comas, you would stand on the mountainside and look all around you, and all you could see for miles around was dirt and squatters, people who had no legitimate claim to the land they were living on. And Wilma looked at this destitute area and said, I'm going to build a school here. And she did. She built a 6-story school that still stands to this day. I'll be visiting it in a few months again. And her school stands as a beacon of hope to all the children and all the families who live there, because her school is a symbol and it says to all of those families, I see you and you matter. And then another friend, Carlos Mayorga, he lives in Nicaragua near a trash dump community called Limonal, where every day, all day, the children, the families who live there, they pick through the trash looking for something to eat or looking for something they can sell so they can buy something to eat. And my friend Carlos did 2 things. He built a kitchen there in the middle of this trash dump, and he also built a vocational school. And his kitchen and his vocational school say to all these children and all these families, you are not trash. Your lives have value and they have meaning and they have purpose. And so these friends have really showed me that teaching is about restoring dignity, fostering hope, and creating spaces where students feel seen and they feel valued. You can go to my next slide. Last year, I was reminded of the importance of connection in a deeply personal way. So these are pictures of my son, who was 15 at the time. He's a baseball player and he suffered a very severe injury less than a year ago. It was March the 13th. We were at Normal Parents at a baseball game in Spencer County, and we were watching him about to make a beautiful catch in the outfield. And it was a night game, and as the ball was coming down, he lost track of it. And instead of catching it, it glanced off the top of his glove and hit him in the face. And so within a few moments, we were transferred by ambulance to the Children's Hospital downtown. And upon arriving, they told us he wasn't breathing on his own, so they put him on a ventilator. We found out pretty quickly that he had a fractured skull, and that he also had a very severe concussion. And so what happened as I sat in the hospital was messages started pouring in, of course, but they weren't just from my family and they weren't just from my colleagues. They were also from my students, because my students reached out with concern, with prayers, and with a depth of empathy that really took my breath away. And it was a moment that reminded me teaching isn't always about what we give to our students. It's also about what they give to us. So what could have been an isolating experience really built a bridge between my students and me. And you can go to the next slide. These are parts of my story, but each of us carries a story that has shaped us into the educators that we are today, and our stories matter. So as I step into my role as ambassador for teachers across the Commonwealth, one of my missions is to lift up the voices of educators to share their experiences, because when we listen to each other's stories, we find strength and we find inspiration and we find a shared purpose that can unite us all. So in 2025, the message I want students and teachers to hear from me is that their stories matter because they matter. So to this end, I am working to create a website that celebrates the power of teachers' experiences. Teachers like Emily Griffey, who is an MSc teacher in Olmsted. When she was 16, she became a peer tutor in a life skills class. She met a nonverbal student with Down syndrome, and Emily says she learned more from this peer than anyone else in her entire life. She's also the proud mom of a boy with autism, and she says she quite literally lives and breathes for children with special needs. I also want to celebrate teachers like Kristen Haley, who teaches in Christian County, because of the way her teachers invested in her life, not only academically, but also personally. She knew they wanted her to succeed. So she now works hard to build a kind and supportive classroom community, because she says she knows when students feel included, they're willing to work and grow. So I want to highlight the stories of teachers like these so that we can learn and grow from each other. I want to remind every educator that their journey, both the challenges and the victories and everything in between, they're all valuable, that we all have a story to tell, and every story matters.
Wow. Well, congratulations to you. And it's absolutely no wonder that you're a Kentucky Teacher of the Year. How's your son?
Oh, I forgot to mention. So if you go back to that picture, I think it's one before this. So the second picture was taken exactly 60 days after his accident. So he did make a full recovery. When I returned back to school, I had so much support from my students and their families by way of hugs, of notes, of meals. And so although my son's not very expressive, so he didn't really talk about what this moment in that picture meant to him, I know that he had to overcome a lot of fear to get back out there. He played both in the outfield and he also batted in that game. And so that was a pretty special picture. It represents a victory. So.
Well, that is amazing. So congrats to him for his full recovery, and you are a light. So just congratulations, and we are grateful. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to ask or share with Jennifer while she's here? And we're so grateful to have you.
Jennifer, you are incredible. Your story is incredible. I'm so glad that you get to share not only your story, but you get to share the stories of other great Kentucky educators. And I'm just so proud of you. I know everybody is proud of you, but I just wanted to say it in front of everyone because you are, you're awesome.
Thanks, Kevin.
So that is amazing, and we are so grateful to you, and congratulations. So many wishes for continued success, and thank you again, and you're welcome anytime to come and join us.
Well, thanks so much. And if any of you would like to share your story with me, I'd love to include it. Or if you have colleagues that you know have stories that they'd be willing to share, I'd be happy to include those as well. Thank you all.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much. Round of applause. Great job. Great job. Thank you all. All right. So moving on now to item number 6. We have Glyptis Ann Jones with us today, I hope. She's going to talk to us about the Kentucky Board of Education non-voting teacher member applications and the selection process for that role. So I think this is the second year in the row that the TAC has been involved in this. So good morning, Glyptis Ann. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone on the Teachers Advisory Council. I do also want to share congratulations to Jennifer for being Teacher of the Year, and I look forward to following your journey this year as you're fulfilling your duties as Teacher of the Year. But I'm here today, and thank you to the TAC for inviting me. I'm here to talk about both the applications for our non-voting teacher member of the Kentucky Board of Education, and also have a request for members of the Teachers Advisory Council. So first, today is actually the deadline. So we hope that you have seen the advertisement and the call for applications. If you want to advance to the next slide, if those are included here, and the next slide as well. But again, noting to that today is the deadline, but I do want to briefly highlight the application for the non-voting teacher member of the Kentucky Board of Education. This slide includes information about eligibility. So each year, membership for the non-voting teacher of the board, it's based on the state's congressional district, and so those rotate in numerical order. So this year is a call for applicants who reside. They must reside in Kentucky's 3rd congressional district, and that includes part of Jefferson County. And we have included here a link to the application as well, so that you may be able to track the boundaries for the 3rd Congressional District. The applicants must be employed on a full-time basis by a Kentucky Public School District in a position for which the Education Professional Standards Board, or EPSB, certification is required, and they must not be employed in an administrative role. Each member who would serve as the teacher member is for a 1-year term that would begin July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. It's a 1-year commitment. You can go to the next slide, please. I wanted to briefly highlight what is gained from serving. These are pictures that we've included here in the slide of past teacher members who serve. But very briefly, serving for 1 year on the Board of Education really offers some incredible insight and experience related to education policy here in Kentucky. Offers the ability to have familiarity with state laws and policies and administrative regulations as they relate to education, knowledge about education issues as they relate to both Kentucky and the nation, and then ultimately the ability to make a difference in Kentucky's educational policies. So the invitation to sit with the board and share and contribute your voice and experience are all opportunities gained through serving that 1-year commitment. Go to the next slide, please. So expectations of our board members are included here, and I'll just briefly highlight would be attending board meetings. We have both a virtual and in-person options, and we encourage in-person attendance, but also have that ability to join virtually if that suits your needs. We expect, we do have meetings that tend to be every 2 months in person. There's a 2-day commitment, and it would include preparing for the board meeting as well. And then, of course, serving and attending meetings, becoming familiar with state laws and policies, complying with the policy manual, and all of the applicable laws that govern the Board of Education. So just briefly highlighting some expectations there. And next slide, please. And included in the slide deck and also available on the Kentucky Department of Education, we have additional information about the application, required materials. Some of the materials include, for example, a resume, a narrative statement about why the applicant wishes to serve in the position, and a statement of assurance that the applicant meets the definition of a teacher. And additional details are included on that link. And then we've also included information, and this is the ask of those who are interested in sort of the second ask here today, but outlining the process for selection and appointment of the KBE non-voting teacher member. We can go to the next slide. So in that regulation 701 KR 5:160, it outlines the process for selection, which includes the Commissioner's Teacher Advisory Council or a subset of the council to review applications for the non-voting teacher member, and then attending a virtual meeting to discuss scoring and ultimately identify 3 finalists to recommend forward to the Kentucky Board of Education for consideration. So in addition to highlighting the opportunity, if you or your colleagues are interested in the application itself, but today the second ask here is if the council is willing, or those who are interested in serving on what would consider a special committee of the TAC. And so the ask here today is for those who are interested to serve in a special committee. There are two ask. One, both independently review the applications. Information will be shared with those who want to serve on the committee, and then also attending a virtual meeting. The committee members, we will set a meeting at the convenience of the committee members so that you're able to attend virtually. So today, and in coordination with Chair Melanie Callahan and then also Justin Edwards, working to identify if you're interested and available to serve. And again, the committee would meet at the convenience of committee members, and with the intention of preparing and submitting that information forward to the board by its June meeting. So Melanie and Justin, if I may help ask for assistance in soliciting any of those interested, would you like to do that at this time or after the meeting? I defer to how you would recommend handling gathering committee members.
I think in the past, Glyphosine, Director Jones, what we've done is they have sent an email if they do have interest to Justin and myself, and then we can cascade that out to you. Maybe give them time to unpack it a little bit, and again review the application and the selection standards and things like that, and see if they want to be a part, and then send a quick email. Is that okay? And if we want to cap it right now and say they need to let us know by a certain specific date, what are your thoughts on that? Maybe let us know by Thursday if you're interested. Would that be okay?
That sounds great. I appreciate that suggestion. And yes, so Thursday the 13th, is that correct?
Correct. So TAC members, that being said, we would need to receive, if you do have interest in being part of the TAC special committee, we'll need to have an email to Justin and to myself stating that you would have interest in that, and then we can get that to Director Jones to move forward.
And I believe the next slide, I think, has my email address. Awesome. If I may be able to answer any questions now at this time, or my email's provided there, happy to answer questions, and appreciate you, Chair Callahan and Justin, for your help and support gathering that information and helping establish this committee.
Well, it is our privilege to do that. Does anyone right now have any questions for Director Jones at all?
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it so much, and we'll speak soon. Thank you so much. All right, moving forward, we will now proceed to item number 7, and that is our positive behavior positive behavior intervention strategies report with Christy Tomes, our program consultant from KDE's Division of Student Success. Christy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you all for inviting me today. I am Christy Toms. I am with the Division of Student Success. I am a PBIS ISF consultant, and I am retired, returned to work. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for me. I live in Hopkins County, which is Madisonville. It's Western Kentucky. So when the commissioner was talking about his long jaunt to Eddyville and back in one day, when I come to Frankfort, it takes me 3 hours to get there, and you all are an hour ahead in Frankfort. And so then when I come back, I gain an hour, and it's a lovely trip. I usually make it an overnight trip. But I am field-based. There are 3 consultants that work with the PBIS programming at KDE. And so when Justin asked me to do this today, I could talk all day long about PBIS, but I'm just going to kind of give you some overview of what we do. And we are gearing up now for our 4th PBIS state applications for fidelity. Last year, we had 224 schools that applied for state fidelity, and that began in the school year 21-22. Prior to the KDE state fidelity work, I worked with the Kentucky Center for Instructional Discipline, or KCID, as some of you may remember. And that work began with Mike Wofford back in the early 2000s. And so just a little history there of our work. When I retired in 2013 as an administrator in Hopkins County at Little Pride Elementary School, had no idea that I would continue this work, but it's always been my heart, and I believe in it because I saw what a change it brought to our school of 400 students, and it has continued there and also district-wide. And so I serve the Western Kentucky part of the state, and then there are 2 other consultants that help throughout the state. What I would like to share with you is how we determine our application process, how that goes. If you are in a PBIS district, you can apply for state fidelity. And thank you, Justin. What we base our fidelity applications on is the tiered fidelity inventory, which is a national inventory. There are 3 tiers to PBIS, and so within this inventory, there are 3 levels. And so in the next school year, this inventory will be updated and there will be version 3.0. And it will look just a little bit different. But for this year, our application is based on version 2.1. And so if you want to go ahead, Justin, to the next slide. Just to show you how this inventory is, how it's laid out. When your district, if you have a district PBIS coach or a team in your district that evaluates using the inventory, they'll come into your school and do a walkthrough, and I'll show you that in a minute. But they use this inventory, and there's a feature, as you can see, there's a possible data source and a scoring criteria. And this is, as we all know, fidelity just means, are you working the framework as you should be? Are you doing it to the best of your ability? And so this is an inventory that really helps your school understand PBIS and whether they're reaching fidelity with it. So go ahead to the next slide. This is the walkthrough. So with Tier 1, we come in and do a walkthrough, or the district can come in and do a walkthrough. And then after they've completed the walkthrough, we ask staff and students to score out expectations. We also talk about their acknowledgement system. And then we go through the inventory with the district. So we provide a lot of technical support. I think in the fall, I did 54 walkthroughs and tiered fidelity inventories. takes a lot of time. Sometimes districts have their own teams that do this for them. Here in Hopkins County, we have 12 schools. And so I work with Hopkins County, Henderson County, Murray Independent, which was featured in KET for their wonderful PBIS work. I also work with Hancock County, Davis County, and we also work with the co-ops and provide training for PBIS through the co-ops. Depending on the area, sometimes I work with WKEC, sometimes with the Green River Educational Co-op. So our process for Fidelity is, this is the inventory that we use for Fidelity. And applications for Fidelity, if you are interested in that or your school district is, applications will begin on April the 1st and those run through June the 1st. So you have 2 full school months to apply for state Fidelity within your district or your school. Now, typically that application will be sent to the co-ops and they can distribute that application, but also we send it to individual district coaches and schools. So we try to get that word out as best that we can. If anybody on the call is in a district and you don't happen to get an application and you want one, please feel free to reach out to me, and I would love for you to apply for state Fidelity. We usually, in June 1st, when that application closes, then we go through all of those applications to verify the information, and those are awarded in September. Each school receives a banner, a PBIS banner from KDE to display in their building. And then also we give them a sticker. So many of our schools now, when we walk in, have collected their stickers, and they are PBIS schools, and it's just a great thing for your district to have. As far as improvement strategies, we use Tableau, which is part of the Infinite Campus data visualization system, to look at office referrals. And when we do that, we are able to look and see if their office referrals have gone down through the year by using PBIS. I can tell you, as reference of my school, the first year that we implemented PBIS, we saw a drastic reduction in our office discipline referrals. And I was the principal, and it was my second year of being the principals, and I was so happy about that. And then we also saw an increase in our reading and our writing and our math scores on the state assessment. Our actual writing scores improved over 50 points that year. So a lot of people look at that and say, can you contribute that to PBIS? Well, you would have to be in our building to know that, but it completely changed the culture of our building. What a wonderful thing for us to implement. It's a school-wide, PBIS, if you aren't familiar, is a school-wide system support aimed at establishing a positive student culture. And at each tier level, it is an individualized approach for students. And oftentimes this is, it's a framework within your building, but it's also something that you can run alongside other programming like Leader in Me. So there's different programs you can run with it, but it's a framework for your building. And I have lots of information to share, and I'm not sure what the next slide is because I can't remember what all I gave Justin. Okay, there you go. So a lot of our work in Kentucky is based off of PBIS Midwest. And so when you look at PBIS Midwest, if you ever have a chance to go to their conferences in Chicago, it's a wonderful way to learn about PBIS. But we partner with them through our grant, which was the School Climate Transformation Grant. We partnered with them, and we kind of modeled a lot of things after the PBIS Midwest Foundation. Here you have pbisapps.org. And so each school that applies for Fidelity and goes through the tiered inventory, they upload their scores into PBIS apps. And so throughout the years, they can look at their progress. Also, just making sure that I'm covering everything for you. So in 2004, when we began our work with PBIS in Hopkins County at my individual school, we have seen our test scores increase from that day. Also, after I heard the teacher of the year, what a wonderful presentation that was. But I was proud to tell you that in 2023, the elementary teacher of the year was Kelly Gates, and she was from my school, Pride Elementary, and she was on the first PBIS team. Wonderful supporter, and she still serves on that team today. So each school has a PBIS team, and they develop the expectations for their schools. They look at their data, their systems, and their practices. So if you want more information, please reach out to me. If you're interested in applying for state fidelity, please, if you do not receive an application around the 1st of April, please let me know, and we'd love to have you apply for state fidelity. We've seen our numbers increase every year. Our goal this year is to have 250 schools apply. So thank you very much. Any questions from anyone?
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Christy Toms at this time?
Hey, Christy, I want to thank you for your time. This is Kevin Daly. I'm in Boone County. My school has used a PBIS system at various points, and we have a hard time transitioning that extrinsic to intrinsic motivation. And I was wondering how you guys deal with that. And for those extrinsic things that are often tied to PBIS, where does that funding come from? Like, how do you get this stuff?
Good question, Kevin. So the rep that works with your district is Lee Brown, and I don't know if you've met Lee or not, but she goes back many years. She's like me. She's retired from a school district and then went to work for KCID and KDE. And I know she just made a trip to Boone County. So good question. Over the years, that has changed. I can only tell you that many schools, their family resource helps them with funding. Their PTAs or PTOs help them with funding. I go in schools all of the time. Last week, I was in Henderson County, and that was my number one question. How are you funding your rewards for behavior? And so sometimes they write school grants. Our school wrote a lot of grants, and they're out there. And I encourage people all the time to reach out to Kelly Gates in Hopkins County, because she is the grant guru. She knows how to get the funding. And at one point, we received a $20,000 grant. We've received $10,000 grants. Every year, there are multiple grants that come in. And but as far as funding for that, Kevin, there's just different resources that are pulled throughout the building. I know I was in Henderson County High School the other day, and they were telling me things they were doing, and they had ordered T-shirts. So every week when they have their PBIS drawings, their kids can get a T-shirt. That was funded through different events that they had. It was funded through family resource, PTOs, just, lots of different ways. As far as
if I may add to that, as a former superintendent, I would see a lot of the schools. We were a PBIS district. We would see a lot of schools try to do experiences during the school day. For example, yes. A special like they had a hard work cafe where students had one room where they could go eat, watch TV during lunch. But the other thing we would do from a district level is if they wanted to take a group to maybe to the McDonald's, which was a big deal in Lawrence County, then the district would essentially take on the cost of the bus. Now, sometimes the students would pay for themselves or things of that nature, but like if they wanted to have a lunch meal with a group outside the building, the district would basically say, okay, we'll take care of the cost of the bus. So we would try to find ways if we saw schools that were really making strides to move forward, then we would handle some transportation costs, things like that to help out. But again, I think it really comes out to those partnerships, either with local businesses, with your service center, with your district, to say, okay, how can we cut down the costs? And when you see a staff that puts forth a lot of effort into how can we change the experience during the school day to kind of minimize the amount of money required, then as a former superintendent or as a superintendent, I would say, okay, we can find ways at the district to help out too, and we would do that.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Yes, our district here in Hopkins County for several years I think they contributed $1 a student. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really was for each school, especially my school where I was the administrator. That amounted to $400 and something. So that would cover transportation. Lots of schools do in-house rewards like that. I know probably 3 years ago, I was in Crittenden County at their middle school, and they did a winter event where every student in the building who had one or less office referral got to go to this winter event in their gymnasium. And they had fake snowballs, and they had a big snowball fight with the staff, and they had hot chocolate. And it was just, it was incredible. And so when I'm hearing about this, I'm thinking, oh boy, this was a lot of planning. And there were no behavior issues. Everything went fine. And so that's what your PBIS team is for, to really think about these things. What can you do? And in Little McLean County, which by the way just used all their NTI days, and they had drastic flooding. I went there last week to Calhoun Elementary, and I have to cross a levee to get there, and it's incredible what these people are dealing with. But they were back in school, and they have lots of their middle school funds an outdoor carnival for their PBIS group at the end of the year. So all the way through the year, they're getting their funding sources, and they have a big carnival set outside. Now, I'm not talking about rides. I'm talking about games and fun for the kids outside. So yes. And so I could go on and on about this because it's very passionate to me, what happens with PBIS. And so hope that helped you, Kevin.
So any other comments, questions? Anybody want to share out anything that their particular school or district is doing with PBIS at this time?
Ms. Thomas, this is Emmanuel and Alma Green from Harlan County High School.
Yes.
We started PBIS. Well, we've been doing it pretty regularly for the past couple of years and so forth. This year we've kind of got a more stable footing on it. For the application for the tiered fidelity inventory, who will that go to in our district so that we can kind of contact them, or if we need to contact you at that point? Do you have like a particular person that we can look for that from? Because
do you have a district PBIS director?
We've got some resources there. So some individuals that we could probably check with there.
We first send it out to all the co-ops.
Okay.
And then we try to send to district PBIS coaches. Mm-hmm. We have a list, but as you know, that changes every year, and we try to update it, but it's a difficult task. But if you don't receive that, like I said, around the 1st of April, please reach out to me, because I try to just push it out to every entity that I know to push it out to.
Sounds good. We've had noticeable results since the past year or so, so we're excited for sure.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great share and good questions. Thank you. Anyone else before we send Miss Christie on her way?
I would like to share. My name is Rosa Cubero. I teach at Maxwell Elementary here in Lexington, Kentucky. And when we do the PBIS parties, which is once a month, we use, maybe use is not the right word, the special education teachers do 4 rotations. So every single level in the school, the kids get to choose if they want to do music, gymnastic, let's see, what is the next one? Computers or art. So they choose and they get the reward every single month. So in the school, the behavior is really good in Maxwell. So it doesn't require any money, because the special education, the special teachers, they just rotate the kids. So every single one on Friday get the rewards once a month. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. There's wonderful stories across our state about PBIS. And last year, when we had our fidelity applications and when the window closed, we had about 224 schools that applied. But as we began to look at the data online, there were many districts that were uploading their data, but they didn't apply for fidelity. And so we don't know if that was because they didn't get the application, or perhaps they were applying with their co-op and just didn't apply for the state. But we encourage you to apply. PBIS is alive and well in Kentucky, and I'm so thankful for that, and I'm happy for that. I will be retiring June 30th for the second time, but we will have more consultants coming on, and but I can connect you with anybody that you need help at KDE that can help you with PBIS. So thank you.
Thank you, and best wishes if we don't talk to you. Best wishes on that second retirement. And I know that you've contributed so much to PBIS, and so we are grateful to you.
Thank
Christy,
you.
thank you. And if you have any questions, like she said, make sure that you cascade those out to her, because obviously she will be a great resource and help to us before she goes on her merry way. So, all right, now we will move on to our item number 8, which is the legislative update with my old and dear friend, Cassie Trueblood. Cassie, are you with us?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Brian Perry regrets that he's not able to join you today. Unfortunately, at this point in the session, he is pretty much tied to the legislature and over there at the annex. Earlier in the meeting, Commissioner Fletcher did share some updates with you on specific bills. As he mentioned, we unfortunately do not have a crystal ball, so we are not able to speak to what the final passage of those bills are going to be. And we have hit the point in session where things are moving very quickly. So what I would be able to tell you about bills right now is likely going to be out of date by 5 o'clock today. So I wanted to provide you with some resources on how you can follow along with these last few days of session. Today is day 25 of the 30-day session, so that finish line is in sight. We are getting close. This week, we have the concurrence days, Thursday and Friday, and then the veto period is going to start. So those more controversial bills, those that the governor is expected to veto, the General Assembly is going to be working to get those bills passed this week, because that veto period will run March 15th through March 26th. Following that, the General Assembly is going to come back into session for 2 legislative days to override any vetoes and pass out any new legislation. New legislation that is passed in those final 2 days is subject to veto, and the legislature would not be able to override those. But we will have a conclusion to the session by midnight on March 28th. Following the session, KDE always releases guidance on all education bills that have been passed. That will go through every office here at the department so that everyone relating to that specific legislation will be able to provide the so that may be something that this council wants to look at for their June agenda, just to see what the lay of the land is. But next slide, please. A few things to note. This year, we did see some changes to the House Education Committee. They split into 2. Last session, we did just see a House Education and Senate Education. This year, we have House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, which is led by Representative Scott Lewis and vice chaired by Representative Mike Clines. And then we have the Post-Secondary Education Committee, which is led by Representative James Tipton and Vice Chair Shane Baker. That committee did meet this morning at 8 o'clock, and that could potentially be their final meeting. They said at this point they did not expect any special called meetings, but always expect the unexpected, and we will continue to watch that. So next slide, please. A few resources on how you can follow along with these final days of session. I do have the committee calendar there for you. As I said, we're getting into kind of the final committee meetings, and we will be seeing some special called meetings, I expect. But again, the House Post-Secondary Education Committee has been meeting on Tuesdays. The Primary and Secondary Education Committee meets tomorrow morning at 8:30, and then Senate Education meets on Thursdays at 10 o'clock. We have seen a few special called meetings from the Senate Education Committee so far. Also, with these, at the bottom of the slide there, you have the links to be able to watch the different meetings, whether that is committee meetings or the chamber floors themselves. I personally am a fan of the YouTube site for LRC. They do a great job of breaking down each individual committee meeting. So if you missed a committee meeting, you're able to go back and view that. Next slide, please. But this landing page here, which I am also going to put these links in the chat for you. This is the landing page for the 2025 session. And this can take you and link you to all of the different information that you'll need to know. You see there in the first column, you have the Senate bills, and you can scroll about halfway through that page and you're able to see Senate bills with title and prime sponsor. That's going to give you a general idea of what's in that bill. Now, we do have over 1,000 pieces of legislation that are floating out there this session. So it's very hard to know and keep track of all of the different bill numbers that are out there, especially as we see bills being added into other bills and committee substitutes. But you do have that ability to see that for the Senate bills, for the House bills, and then what's particularly helpful is the index heading. So next slide, please. So with that, on that landing page, it does take you to an index heading. And I have the link for the primary and secondary education bills specifically, which is on your screen right now. And that will break down the different education bills that have been filed, and we'll link you to those. And it gives you a general heading. So if you know that there's a certain topic that you are wanting to follow along with, you're wanting to look for, this will help you locate that bill number. The next slide. And then here we have a bill landing page. So this is House Bill 190. Part of the reason that I selected it is short enough that I actually can include it on 2 slides. Some of the bills have had so many actions that it would probably take 5 or 6 slides to get them in there. But this just shows you, if you go to a particular bill, you click on the link, this will give you all of the relevant information for that bill. There you'll see bill documents, which will link you to the current version of the bill. It'll tell you who the sponsors are and the summary of the original version. It also lets you know there at the top of the screen what the last action was. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is the bottom page of that. So if we were on the website, if you scrolled down, this then breaks down the various actions to show you what has happened each step of the way. And then it also will tell you about the specific amendments that have been filed with those bills. We've seen a lot of amendments filed this session, and we're going to see a lot more, I would say, in these last 5 days. So this section can be particularly helpful. But that is the slides that I have for you today. Again, I've included those links in the chat, and we will have additional information following the session on all of those bills that have made it across the finish line and how to implement those. Are there any questions?
Any questions at all for Attorney Cassie Trueblood, who's here with us? Questions, concerns, thoughts, opinions? All right, well, we hope to have someone back maybe in our June meeting to, again, give us an update and see, how those bills cross the finish line. So that'll be something that we'll look forward to hearing about in June. Thank you, Cassie, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. All right, and that was awesome. Really, really good update. I know that there's so much going on right now over at the annex and so many things that are taking place. So we're grateful for that. So our next meeting, our future meeting that we will have together is going to be on June the 10th, 2025. So we might be out of school by then, Commissioner Fletcher. I'm hoping so. But make plans and mark your calendar for our next meeting, which will be June the 10th, 2025.
Hey,
And
Melanie.
yes, hey, Kevin.
I'm so sorry. I just didn't want people to hop off. Would you mind if I share an opportunity real quick for the group?
I would love that. Absolutely.
So this past week, I was able to attend the Days of Learning in Frankfurt, and I talked to Commissioner Fletcher about an opportunity that the Kentucky Milken Educators Network is providing. We have been meeting together as a small committee. Shane Baker is on this call. The other Shane Baker is on this call. He's also a Milken educator, and he's part of our advisory committee. We are putting together a free, publicly available professional learning opportunity each month for any new aspiring veteran educator. Each of these will be hosted by a Milken educator. If you're unfamiliar with the Milken Network, it is a national award-winning program for early to mid-career educators. We are called the Milken Educators of the Bluegrass. Had to throw that in there. And these professional learning topics are going to change and kind of be topical for each point in the year. So the first one, I put a link in the chat if you want it. And if you want to email me directly, you can. The first one will be on March 20th at 8 o'clock Eastern. And it's going to be, for those of you who were part of this committee last year, it's going to be largely about my Teacher of the Year project, The Imperfect Classroom, and how you can build culture within your schools. So that presentation has been adapted for a while. But I would love to ask each and every one of you to share this flyer out to your professional networks, to your personal networks. It is, again, free and open to the public. And I can assure you, even just knowing the Milken Network, these are going to be incredible sessions. Shane, if you'd like to add anything that I missed, because like I said, Shane is also on this advisory committee. Please do.
Yeah, again, we're trying to make this kind of like a monthly thing, just having a mini PD opportunity, very low stakes. We just want to help spread the word. And like, this is our first initial meeting with this. I'm planning on sending it to a couple of people I know who work in universities across our state to get some prospective teachers also to join this. It'd be great if you could share with your local school districts, schools, any local universities or anything. That would really help us out. So thank you all very much.
Yeah,
and I think that would be awesome.
Cliptus, Ann, I know you're still on the call. If you want to share in the KDE networks, please feel free to. I can, again, just reach out to me if you want any more, like a different format or anything like that. I would be happy to provide any of that. But thank you for letting us have these last few minutes of the call.
Oh, no, absolutely. And we're so grateful to you guys, and what a blessing to have you all. So thank you so much. And hopefully we can make that happen. And maybe a few of us will be on the call. That would be great. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. Chat, question, concern, comment? Oh, we got a thumbs up. Awesome. All right. Well, with that being said, I will see you all on June the 10th. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the school year. Let's finish strong and do a great job for our children. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn. Manuel and Alma Green, Harlan County High School.
Thank you so much. And a second?
Yeah, Davidson second.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Justin, for doing a great job for running our slides today. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.